So what I'm going to be talking about is the work of a graduate student project that was done in one semester. The graduate students were all the co-authors on this paper, along with Scott Stevens, who helped teach the course with me. It was done inside of 15 weeks. And I'm really going to paint a picture of how that game developed, because that's what the paper is all about. It's that you can use playtesting with children to develop a children's product, and how this changed over the time from when we started to when we finished. So playtesting to explore, playtesting to refine, playtesting to evaluate. So at the end of this, you'll see that, oh, we actually worked with kids a lot. And it's going to be a little bit different in that I could spend the time trying to be an academic and really drop back and tie this to some work that was done at DIGRA that talked about the ARCS model of attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction, and spin things in a more scholarly fashion. I don't want to do that now. So if you want some of the details of that, you can go into the paper, look some of that up. Instead, I want to go and talk about the 4 F's of game design. One reason to do this is that tomorrow Jason Vanderberg is going to be delivering the keynote here. So it's nice that he'll be giving a talk, not on this, but you'll hear him again. But the 4 F's of game design, a different paper where he also credits Marc LeBlanc, is to fail faster and follow the fun. And this project very much followed these rules, a little bit surprisingly. They knew about this work, and they failed, and then they followed the fun. So you're going to hear that story, which I think is interesting, because normally you don't get a conference paper come up and say, we failed. But that's the main point of this work, is that we failed, and then we move forward from there. So this is very much a graduate student project. The Entertainment Technology Center is a 2-year professional master's degree program. The students go off and they work for professional game companies. The students learn by working with an external client. This was one of those projects. There's a website where they give their weekly progress. If you want to drill down and get more details about what this particular team did, you can find that on their project website. I'm now going to play their project video so you get a better sense of who this team is. They couldn't be here. They have midterms this week, but I was able to come and present their work for them.
We're Team Transcendence, and together with our client, Allegheny Health Network, we have made an educational mobile game to help improve the daily lives of traumatized children. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy is a process that addresses the residual negative thinking habits of traumatized children. Utilizing the cognitive triangle, children are taught how to identify and improve their negative cognitions.
The cognitive triangle teaches children to analyze their everyday experiences in terms of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that may occur during any given incident. Our game allows children to both interact with and serve as advisors to our various animal characters in order to help them solve their cognitive issues.
In the game, players take on the role of Lion, who leaps from platform to platform to collect orbs, representing the negative experiences of the other animals. They will also collect thought stones, which contain alternative perspectives on the negative event. This teaches more positive thinking. To reach these items, players must generate new platforms, which appear as the result of categorizing experiences into the cognitive triangle. This integrates the educational aspect of identifying thoughts, feelings, and behaviors directly into the gameplay.
We hope our game can help the traumatized children understand their own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, so that they may assess their future experiences with a renewed, positive outlook. Our game offers them a fun tool designed to promote therapeutic success and happy lifestyles.
So this game had a number of players. The students all took different roles. There are students that are artists that are focused very much on the artwork, students that are designers, producers, programmers. They all come together. They make this over a course of a semester, and Scott and myself were the ETC faculty on the project. So trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, TF-CBT, has been proven in the field. There's been 13 separate clinical studies showing that this actually works for children that have gone through some sort of trauma, from weather-related incidents to some family incidents, different predation problems, all sorts of trauma causing incidents. Children go through. It's estimated that over 25% of United States children have experienced some sort of trauma, it doesn't mean they go into any sort of need for trauma therapy, but the need is out there, and so there's a lot of work in the healthcare space to help children with trauma. We had true professionals, one a professional psychiatrist, one a professional psychologist, work with us on the need for more training, for more help for children that are experiencing trauma. And this TF-CBT, the way children are helped when they have trauma incidents and they need help, are a series of steps that are summed up with practice. The C step, the cognitive coping and processing, is the one that the medical professionals really wanted help with, because they had homework exercises that were given by the medical staff when children come in for TF-CBT, and the children really weren't following this. And by children, I'm speaking of 6 to 16-year-olds, so that big age range, and they wanted some help with dealing with that. The main part of the training and the main part of the homework exercise is a cognitive triangle of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all connected. So I could have a very negative thought, and that's what happens with the children, is they go through trauma and they have very negative thoughts, and that leads to negative feelings and negative behaviors. I might have a negative thought up here that everybody is sleeping because I am boring them and they came back from lunch. And I should not have a negative thought, because then it gives me a feeling of sadness and a behavior of I'm going to talk faster and faster. So instead of that, I should have a thought that you're all interested because I use color, and so you're going to pay attention to me, so now I feel confident, and my behavior is I'll deliver a better talk. That's the sort of practice we want the children to go through, where they can replace negative thoughts with better ones. So the way that we decided to do this, the students with their designs, was we don't want to present them with human situations because those are overloaded. How do we represent race and gender and problems, and is it going to make them worry? Even the artwork, the medical professionals did not want the students to worry. They didn't want dark, foreboding colors because it might cause fear to come up in the students. So instead, use bright, joyful colors, have an animal setting, have animal stories, and use animal-like folk stories like why mosquitoes buzz in people's ears to present some sort of a series of steps where there are misthoughts, and the misthoughts and the missteps lead the animals down a different direction than where they should be going. And as long as we were using a West African folklore, use some West African type art, a batik style of artwork. So this is a really good starting point for the students. And they thought, we'll make an interactive storybook. So we'll have a storybook where the panther goes up to the wolf and says, "Wolf, why do you howl at night?" And the wolf walks away and never howls again because the wolf figures that panther doesn't like the howling. That's a negative thought, that's not right, but that sets off a whole bunch of, a series of problems with all the animals in the animal community, and you as the lion or lioness walk through and you try to correct all these missteps. So it was a really good framework. And it started off like, okay, that's going to work. We'll read through these different stories. We brought in 8 child playtesters to test this, and we used direct observation plus surveys to see how that worked. So here is the failure. It didn't work at all. The children were bored. They didn't want to read. In the surveys, they thought that they were just being told what they should be learning with this cognitive behavioral triangle. It was a failure as a game. It was just not interesting. And the children didn't want to do that type of exercise. So the artwork itself was okay. The artwork was working, especially if we could have these nice natural backdrops with that batik style with the bold white outlines up front for the art. But the problem was, when we asked the children, well, what was great about this? What did you like from the experience? There were different mini-games, much as if you think about Dumb Ways to Die and have all these crazy mini-games for train safety. Here there were all these different mini-games in the experience. One was tickling the panther. Another was follow the monkey. There's like a monkey that you can chase through on platforms through the jungle. That's what the children liked. They really liked going through the platformer game, following the monkey. So that was their most favorite moment. We decided, follow the fun. Instead of trying to recast and make that interactive storybook work, no, go back to the platformer. The platformer was the fun aspect of this whole experience. Make that work better. Now, the trick was, can you, in design, bring in the cognitive triangle into that platformer game? Can you make it so that the children are having fun in the platformer, but it's also teaching something about how to classify thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in the cognitive triangle inside that platformer experience? And that's what the new flow was all about. It was taking the dialogue, making it much smaller, setting up sequences, setting up the stories of the different animals that were involved in this, but bringing out the fun inside the platformer by moving some of the cognitive triangle inside of that. And so what happened is you'd go through in the platformer game, and at the end of every platform, at the end of every level, you'd have to sequence and say, well, how do I classify thoughts, feelings, and behaviors? Owl ignored me, I feel angry, I threw my banana. Which of those is a thought, which is a feeling, which is a behavior? It stitches together the story through the jungle experience and lets us understand better about the cognitive triangle. We wanted to see if this is working, this new direction, and so 21 new children came in, tested the experience, and they said, this platformer is fun, even though there were now cognitive triangle elements inside of that. Now we were able to get to some of those finer polish points. The font was horrible on those early screens. It's all uppercase. It's not very readable. The symbolism is kind of funny. All of those things started to be checked with the next 11 coming through and then the final 10 plus 6 coming through. So in a series of 5 different play tests, the game became more and more polished, and the game started really bringing in elements of cognitive triangle to the platformer game. So here is just an example of this iterative play testing, where as children came in, they would tell us a little bit more, the experience would be refined, we would bring in another set of children to see what is happening with this experience. Through that, we really focused at first on 8 to 14-year-olds, and then they narrowed this down where it's working very well for 10 to 12-year-olds, and that's one of our conclusions. So what we also had to do is the children said, well, this is interesting, but being used to games, they wanted a little bit of complexity. Here was one of the challenges of the project, because this was going to be meant as an exercise in cognitive behavioral therapy. The medical professionals did not want the challenge to be so frustrating, so difficult, that some children, some patients would be turned off. So they wanted it to be an experience that was on the easy side. And so we designed it to be something that could be solved in many different ways. If you're a skilled player, a skilled platform player, you'll solve it in one way. Otherwise, you might need some extra scaffolding. That scaffolding can come about with other platforms that are there as hints. This one, it's really subtle. There's like a glowing platform up in this corner that's, if you click on it, you have to classify a thought or a feeling or a behavior. If you get it right, this turns into a grassy platform. Later levels have to have something that's different. So giraffes come into play, and you climb the giraffes as elevators. There are hippos that come in, and you jump on the hippos, and they're like bouncy trampolines. So this is in the shape of a hippo here, and if we click on this, I would then be presented with, I jumped up and down, something that I can classify as a behavior or a thought or a feeling. I get this right, I say yes, I jumped up and down. This shadow turns into the hippo that now I can bounce on. So by bringing in giraffes and hippos and birds that I can jump on and other birds that I can jump on but just briefly, the platform game has increasing levels of complexity, increasing numbers of characters. Children are interested with that gameplay, but also we keep coming back to the cognitive triangle where in order to get some of those extra clues, you have to do something in this triangle space. So this all works well. In the end, we need to sort through all these different players' experiences, the animal players' experiences. We need to figure out, why did monkey throw his banana? How is monkey related to owl? And so forth. And it stitches together the story. So how did this work? At the end of the semester, the final play test, final in quotes for the students, was to bring in 20 children and see how this is working. And the children rated it, again, it's self-rating, so of course there's other things that could be done here, but the children rated it as fun or very fun for the most part, which was very rewarding because there was so much now about the cognitive triangle inside that platformer. There was a little bit of worry that in following the fun, the platformer game, did we ruin things? But no, the children said, this is fine. Final is in quotes because since the semester ended, the medical professionals want to take it back, not just test with regular children. All of these tests were done with regular children, but test with those that are actually going through the cognitive behavioral therapy. That's now behind, in the United States, HIPAA regulations and all sorts of other medical regulations that we can't share that data. That might be 5 years down the line where we read, how is this actually working in true medical practice? But for the students, they did a great job in showing that, yes, indeed, this is a fun, interesting experience. In terms of how difficult it is, they landed right where they wanted to land, which was on the easy side of easy just right, because this was going to be part of therapy. So this works really quite well. I'm going to show one last short video. And then the whole point of this is that by following the fun, by failing early, we knew how to bring something into the experience that the children wanted to play and yet still taught about the cognitive triangle. That teaching about the cognitive triangle wasn't separate from the activity, it was integrated with the activity, so everything was all together. And we really could not have done this without going out to the children and testing to see what's working with the children. So that is Triangle of Life. I'm happy to take your questions.